It's casual, not formal. It's hosted by Rory Pendlin. Oh, and Renee in tow. It's time to start the show. 1, 2, 3, go!
Biner. I love John Biner. Oh my God. And his wife Annie Gabus. Renee, where are you?
I'm right here. Aye, aye, Captain. Just greeting the fans as they. I need a thing, because we have the Millie thing, and we need sign offs, and we need to get better at this, Then we'll upgrade to a podcast. That's what I was trying to tell our buddy, our Houstonian.
It's not a podcast.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's definitely not a podcast. It's definitely not a podcast. We have to be about half of our ages. We have to have the illuminated microphone. I mean, look at, come on. And you have to wear the cap that he was wearing. And then he's like cool. He says things like, I'm going to bounce, like, come on.
Who are we talking about?
Our Houstonian friend, the podcaster. I'm blanking on it. Why do I not remember his name?
Are you talking about Slade Ham? Oh, Slade Ham. Okay.
Slade Ham?
Now I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the show. He was on the show recently.
I love Slade Ham. I'm addicted
That's
to
just
him.
like his name, Slade Ham.
Slade Ham, I'm calling you out. There you go. Yeah.
I love that name. And it's not a stage name either. His parents gave him that name.
No, it's his actual thing. And he has this great story that I put up on the TikTok too. And he goes that his grandmother was chasing his mother down the hallway into maternity as she was giving birth. And don't name him Slade Ham. He'll be a merciless gunslinger. I love it.
Slade Ham.
So great. But we have somebody else here.
She somehow knew she was going to name him Slade Ham.
She knew. We have someone here today who's just as cool as Slade Ham, and that's saying a lot because Slade Ham is pretty darn cool.
That is very true. Let me tell you something about this guy. When I started doing comedy back in 1988, this guy was on the scene, and all the comics looked up to him. He was like Mr. Cool. He was too cool for school. I mean, this guy was the guy. He was it. And we played a gig. I just remember the guy's name now. Pete DeRugio was there. And we had a bunch of foreign people in the crowd. It was a place in Florida where a lot of expats were, I guess. And I didn't even know what expat was back then, which was ironic. And we were all dying. And Steve went up on stage and just killed. He just killed. And that's just the way it was. I mean, this guy was just calm and cool no matter what the situation. He went up and he slayed, and that was it. He was very, very funny comic. And I'm very excited to have him on the show. But there's so many other aspects of his life that we're going to talk about. I mean, this guy is a professional skateboarder. He's in the Skateboard Hall of Fame.
Let's show this. Look at that. That's him.
Back in the day, I'm not seeing anything. I'm sorry.
Oh, great. It's doing that thing again, too.
Yeah, it's doing that thing you do.
Well, then there you go. That's when we got to load him into the studio. We'll
all right, yeah.
It's all right.
So maybe we can get a picture of that later. But he was called Andergrind back then. That was his like handle as a skateboarder, Andergrind. And then he went and did comedy. And then he went off and started teaching in English in Asia. Just like I did. I went off to be with my wife in China. He went off to Korea. So we're going to talk about that. And then he ended up in China. And we were in China for three or so years together, and we used to hang out. And then he came back, and he's an artist as well, and a writer. I mean, this guy is just like juggling all kinds of really talented stuff, really cool stuff. And I can't wait to talk to him. So let's go ahead and bring him up. Steve Anderson.
Comedy. I stole that entrance from Mark Norman, so he has a way of manufacturing inspirato. Just comedy.
I'm always giving props to Steve Johnson, one of our buddies from here in Florida who passed away recently, for some of the really crazy and brilliant stuff that he did. So
What was that, Rory? You mentioned Johnny.
Johnson, yeah, Steve Johnson.
What did you? What was your comment? Yeah, I missed that.
I just
dude.
said I'm always giving props to him, for brilliant stuff that he did.
Yeah.
Like he used to do Popeye singing feelings,
There's
nothing
only a
more
couple
than
guys-
feelings.
There's only a couple guys who can make me laugh till I cry, and that's Johnny and Tom Ryan. T-Bone
Tom
Ryan
Ryan.
up there in New York City
Ryan's been on the show.
is a killer. Has Ryan been on here?
He's been on the show. Yeah, it's a great show.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we booked 2 guests for that show, and the other guest didn't show up, and we went over an hour, just he and I. I mean, as was expected. So
I know we're about to look at some pictures of my youth, so I'm trying to prep my face and my soul for what we're about to experience, because it hasn't been the same since the chimpanzee attack. The transplant
there we go.
The transplant is coming in, though.
There's the Andergrind.
Fort Lauderdale, solid surf, back pool, back in the Dizzy.
Oh man.
Photographer Chris Thatcher took those. Very grateful for his work.
So tell us about that aspect of your life. How young were you when you started skateboarding and hanging out with these guys that went on to become skateboard legends like yourself?
Well, I definitely was in the heart of the matter, as Don Henley would put it. I started on clay wheels with ball bearings, and there was kind of a craze around Boca High. I think I was around 9th grade, maybe less, but we would just take these rough boards all over the place. And then the sport started to evolve.
You mean Boca Raton, Florida, for the people that don't know what that is.
Yeah. Beautiful Boca Raton. I love that place. Then the sport evolved a bit. I ordered a Logan Earth ski from the back of Val Surf, or from the back of Skateboarder magazine, in a place called Val Surf, and I got a Logan Earth ski. Those were the major board makers back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then urethane wheels started happening, and that's a much softer wheels and a much smoother ride. You could really do some surf cruising and carving without sliding out. And then I actually worked for the guy who invented the Cadillac wheel. The first urethane wheel was Frank Nasworthy. He had a skate park in Lighthouse Point called Cadillac Wheels Skateboard Concourse, and it had this humongous pool called the Monster Hole. It was like, I want to say 13 feet deep, lots of vert, big coping, and I used to work there.
And that's where those pictures were taken?
Of high school. I used to go pick up Naz every Saturday morning. He'd be sleeping. I'd go over to his house. Naz, we got to go. And then he had all these surf magazines and skate magazines. I used to just sit there on his couch looking through all his magazines. And then we'd go to the park. But that was a little bit, I'm making a leap there from Cadillac Wheels to my the park story. But there's another step. They were called Road Riders. And these were precision bearing wheels that was so smooth. It was like a miracle. To step on a board with Road Riders for your first time in your life was transformative. And so the sport really took off after that. And there was freestyling. There were half pipes, wooden, plywood. We made the Hollywood ramp. I wasn't instrumental in that construction, but I think I was on a few purloined plywood runs to local construction sites. half of the sport were just nothing but criminals, and we used to just drain pools and skate them. It was just mayhem and madness. But the Hollywood ramp was famous in Fort Lauderdale. That was Alan Gelfand. He invented the ollie. Kevin Peterson was a big part of that. He was a very funny cat. I tried to get him into comedy, but he wouldn't do it. He went on to become a math professor, got a PhD. There was, all the skaters in that crew were pretty heavy duty. Then you've got a guy like Rodney Mullen up there in Gainesville, and that guy was by far the best freestyler in the world. Like second place was like a mile below him. This guy was an absolute genius. I think he might have invented the kickflip, but Alan Gelfand invented the no-handed air. And that's just some sort of magic. It's some sort of voodoo. You just get it in your head. You can do that. You throw your weight and you pop off the wall and come back in. I witnessed that in the early stages of the ollie, and I witnessed it the first time on vert, and that was a move that transformed the sport. It transformed surfing. There's also kind of a controversy around that at Hollywood, USA, a skate park in Hollywood, Florida. There was another guy named Jeff Dewar who was thought to be the first guy to do it, but Alan picked it up either at the same time or shortly thereafter and just dominated it. He just had so much style. He owned it.
He pulled a Picasso.
He was given credit for it, and I mean, you can go all over the world now, and everybody knows his name. And I think I sent you a photo of me and Ollie together.
Now,
go ahead.
Ollie's name was also in a video that you did while you were in China. It was kind of a gag acceptance speech for when you did the Hall of Fame, right? I looked and looked for that. I couldn't find it. It was so hysterical. Can you please explain to the audience what you did for your acceptance speech for the Hall of Fame?
It's out there somewhere. It's a Florida Hall of Fame, Skaters Hall of Fame. You were behind the camera. You walked it through the school. I had about 7 students.
That was not me. I watched it after you did it, but that was not me. I don't know who you got to do it, but I thought it was hysterical when I saw it.
No, you were on the camera, weren't you?
I don't think I was.
You
showed it to me. Really?
I promise. Yeah, you were on camera.
Oh my God. And my memory.
You can find it out there. It's out there somewhere. Mark Lomas on my Facebook was able to put it into his podcast that I shot. This is my third podcast, by the way, so I'm starting to like get into it. We had like 7 little kids. They were very cute. They were like, I want to say 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I gave them names of famous skateboarders like Tony Hawk, Salba, Ollie, McTwist, El Gato. These are all like the best skaters of all time. And I go, okay, class. And then I was teaching them skateboarding moves on the chalkboard. I was showing them like, okay, front side grind, front side air, front side rock and roll slide, make twist. I was like making them repeat, And then I go, okay, class, who's the best skater in the world? Who's the best skater of all time? And the first kid would go, Tony Hawk. And I go, nope. And the next kid would go, Salba. Nope. And then this one cute kid, I forget his name. He was so damn cute. And he goes, Oli. And I go, no. And then we went around the room to all these different names. Agato. Who else? Some others. And finally I go, nope. And then finally we got to this last cute little girl and she goes, Andergrind. And I go, what do you say? And she goes, Andergrind. And I go, I did the Hollywood slow clap, and then the kids all did the slow clap, and then we are all applauding and standing up, and then your camera went through the classroom and then out that back window, which went across Shenzhen. I think we were about 17 floors up.
Go China, yeah.
And then it went all the way to the hills of Hong Kong, looking eastward to America. So it was, a shout out to America and skateboarding. And Andergrind
was your handle. that was the gag.
Andergrind, yeah, Andergrind was my name, and it all came from a move I did. A grind is just when you hit your back truck against the coping. Coping is the edge of a pool. It sticks out a little bit. And for some reason, it's very good to have that. I don't know why, but it's just good to have coping. You can grind. You can also bang an air off it. It's some sort of miracle that it all came together that way. But Andergrind, I used to call all my moves Ander this, Ander that. I used to put tape on my fingers and call them Ander gloves. Everything was Ander this and that. What's the name? Eponymous. But there was this contest in Clearwater. In Clearwater, it's at Rainbow Wave, or no, it was Clearwater. I forget the name of that park. But they flew in some heavy hitters. They flew in Tony Alva and Dave Hackett, the heavy Californians. They were like rock stars. These guys were number one and top 10 in the world. Tony was number one in the world. But my routine, they had a half pipe, and in the middle of it, it had tall plexiglass extensions that went up 3 feet of vert. And then the deep end had about a foot of vert and some coping on one side. And so I would do a bunch of tricks in the deep end. I do a roll in, I do, some cess, this and that. But to end my routine, I would go in a kind of a circle to gain a lot of momentum, a lot of speed. Mm-hmm. And then I'd fly into the shallow end. Shallow end just went 2 vert, but it had big coping. Mm-hmm. And I would just whip this grinder. I mean, probably 4 coping blocks long. And it would just put up a dust cloud of smoke. I would hit it so hard. Now, the move is simple, but it's very precarious, because if you miss that thing at that speed with that force and that thrust, you could really eat shit, if I can put it that way. But anyway, when I came into the shallow end during the contest, Tony Alva and Dave Hackett were judging. All the skaters in Florida were there. Some people outside of Florida were there. But I hit that coping so hard, it put up a dust cloud, but then the back end of my board flew over the coping, and it bounced and came back in. And I pulled it off. I just stayed with it for some reason. And it was like this little miracle. I think they do those moves. I think they do that move apropos these days. They just do it all the time. But it was never your truck will hang up and then you eat it. But like I pulled it off, and I got a 10. 10s across the board. 10 from Tony Alva.
Wow.
10 from Dave Hackett. 10 from everybody. And it was totally. Also, the night before, I was dating a darling gal named Crystal Lodges, like man and wife.
We're doing Woody Allen now. Oh,
and so
doing the Andergrind.
I was getting ready to do another run. I don't know. It was in between rounds. We were just fooling around, just taking some more runs in between contestants. And suddenly I got a tap on my shoulder, and I turn, and there's Tony Alva. He's like a total rock star. His hair is out to here. It's curly like Medusa. He's got on these cool $1 shades. They're like orange or something. He just picked up a bunch of shades for $1 at Eckerd's, and he was wearing them around. I get this tap on my shoulder. There's Alva, and he goes, I go, Tony Alva. And he goes, gnarliest grinder I seen outside of Dogtown. And I go, oh, thanks. I didn't know what to say. But Dogtown was Santa Monica. That's where, the Z-Boys, Dogtown. Right. That's where he and Jay Adams and, Hackett.
That's where they're doing their thing.
Yeah, that was one of the seminal evolutions of skateboarding. Came through those guys, the Z-Boys, Dogtown, those pools. We would wait to get a Skateboarder magazine and look into it to find out what the heck was going on. I mean, it was like 3 months late. It was like getting the news 3 months later. We're going, what the heck? Over the light was a big thing. Then there's grind. Then there's air. A lot of the air was just pose shots. It would just look like they were doing air, but they were just posing it, and then they were wiping out or running it off. But yeah, but then it turned out Florida skaters were really leading the way with a lot of moves.
Yeah.
There's a book Craig Snyder wrote called, he was a photographer from Florida, called The History of the Ollie, and he wrote a big volume, and he really put a ton of research into it on the timeline of what tricks were done when, Florida versus California, and he made a compelling case of just how badass Florida was, even though California got a lot of, rightly so, got the lion's share of the credit for all these moves. But Florida skaters were good, man. We had Mike Fulmer. This guy was a surfer. He was completely good looking. He was a pro. He had great style. He was a surfer. We had we had Sean Petty. Down in Boca, we had my friend Dan Bra Murray.
Excuse me, but I'm going to try to get Renee back on here because she likes it when we do Woody Allen. So
let me see if I can find some glasses.
Renee, you have to have a pair of Woody Allen glasses next to your phone, when you do these. So, Renee, do you have a picture of Mr. Andergrind when he was in his youth, around the time he was skateboarding and doing comedy? Not yet. She's working on it. She's trying to get it. There we go.
It's great that you're in the village, and Andergrind came in and ordered a bagel with.
Soon would not approve of those glasses, but they're okay for here.
These are Bob Dylan.
This interview is going crazy.
Those are $1. Dollar store glasses there. So you were talking about getting one of the other guys into comedy. What made you make the shift from skateboarding to comedy?
Very good question, Rory. The skateboarding years were so wild. I mean, we had so much fun. We were so free, and it was, in a way, we were just artists. I mean, Stacy Peralta calls skateboarding abstract art, which is very true, because you can look at anything and then imagine how you would ride it or the tricks you could do on it. You could look at anything. You could look at a wall, you could look at a hill, a bank, anything. And so he was very astute in that observation. But in those days, we had such a riot skateboarding. Yeah. Then I went to college, I went to UF. But I loved comedy. We used to act like comedians. I actually had Steve Martin on the bottom of my skateboard from I think it was Time Magazine. It was Wild and Crazy Guy. He's in the white suit with the balloon animals. I cut it out, laminated on the bottom of my board. We loved comedians. We loved Franklin Ajayi. Oh my God, is he funny? We loved Franklin Ajayi.
Very funny.
Sometimes I would announce skateboard contest and I would tell a joke and I would try to be a comedian. And when we were at parties, I always act like comedians. Like I used to hide behind the drapes in the living room and then just take anything and come out, hey, great, it's great to be here, and try to do some comedy. I had one joke. This is the only joke I had. Like I love to be funny in class. I mean, class clown and all that, but and crack people up. But my first real joke I wrote was, Bo Derek, she's a 10 and everything, but she looks great on the outside. But what's her inside like? I mean, what's her pancreas like? Is it one of those droopy ones? And that was my first joke. And cut to me, like, let's see, 12 years later, I'm in a restaurant in LA. 2 tables over is Bo Derek. And these were the handsome years. So she was like kind of checking me out. And I was like, that's Bo Derek. And just getting used to LA, because you'd run into famous people or see famous people all the time.
Yeah.
But I could have told her that joke and we could have fallen in love, and the rest could be history. But God had another plan for Steve Anderson.
I walked out of Bolero. I'm sorry. I told that on this show a couple of times. That's the only movie I've ever walked out of. Was Bolero.
Me and J. Anthony Brown walked out of Prince's Purple Rain.
Really?
He
My
looks at
daughter
me.
hated that movie. I showed it to her and she hated it.
He looks at me and he goes, "This is the worst piece of shit I've ever seen." I go, he goes, "How long
My
is
daughter's
this?"
with you.
He goes, "How long is this?" And I go, "It's as long as we want it to be." And we just.
So, you started comedy in Florida, right?
Let me go back to your question. So, comedy was a way to stay alive and have a ton of fun. It was a big adventure. So, my friend Kevin Peterson was funny as all get out. I used to stay at his house sometimes, and he was a good skater, but mostly he was funny as F. And so when I got into comedy, I did a couple open mics at University of Florida. But when I graduated, I had my sights set on the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale. And so that January of 1985, that first Tuesday was open mic night. I did that, my first, professional. Actually, I did a comedy club in Gainesville once, but I started going there and I became a regular there. And I tried to get KP, Kevin Peterson, to join with me. I said, "Dude, let's do this. This is the new thing." And he wouldn't do it. I think he was just afraid to be in front of
This is the new thing.
This is the new thing.
Wow. And it's true, because at that time, that's when there were comedy clubs opening up like on every corner, because there was
ahead of the curve.
The cable stations were doing comedy shows and comedy sets and stuff. Klein and Carlin and anybody that came down the pike were doing specials on the Showtime and HBO.
Yeah. Well, I was right at the head of the curve, and Brian Regan was down there when I started. Yeah. He had just left, like a couple weeks before I got there. Jeff Garlin was down there, who became a big star.
Oh yeah.
I was an open micer.
There he is. There he is.
Boca Beach Club.
He's the one that's hunched over in the white T-shirt.
There's KP. There's KP right there in the middle. To the left is Rodney Mullen, the world's greatest freestyler of all time. Over my head is Alan Ollie Gelfand. And to the right is Jim
Goodrich.
Ollie. That's Ollie right there, right above my head. And to my left in the photo is Jim Goodrich, a great Skateboarder magazine photog. And my friend Ed Womble took this photo. It was in Gainesville at Sensation Basin.
Too funny. And that's your headshot from when you were doing comedy. With horrible glare on your temple.
Tom Rhodes. That was just a white flower I wore behind my ear.
Do you have terrible headaches?
There's me in Korea and some of my art in the background. That little girl was a very much a genius student.
That was the photo that you sent me. I will tell this story a little later in the show. But you sent me this photo in an email telling me that you were teaching you had found out from somebody, I don't know if it was Johnson or somebody, that I was teaching English in China. And you'd reached out to me because I think your visa was about to come due in Korea.
All right, that's Ollie right there. And
okay.
He's in the Skateboard Hall of Fame, and that's his trophy right there. I'm in the Florida Skateboard Hall of Fame. He's in the big one.
He's in the big Momo.
Yeah, there's a few Florida skaters in the big one. I think let's see, Bruce Walker, Sean Petty's in there. But that's me hanging out with Allie, who now owns it's me and Ari in China. Shortly after the chimpanzee attack.
And behind us, meat.
A
big big, huge cases full of hanging meat. that was our
That
thing.
was a great place, man. I used to love that hangout. I used to love that hangout with you, man. Shenzhen was so much fun. I mean,
It
talk
was.
about
It's
talk
different
about
now.
yeah, talk about fun from comedy, well, from skateboarding to comedy to Asia teaching. You know, all three of those, I signed autographs in all three of those. But all three had in common Converse high tops. Converse high tops were big among skaters, big among comedians, and big in Korea.
I actually wore some Converse when I did comedy. Yeah.
Yeah,
The high
that was part of
tops.
the uniform. Remember those baggy Gerbeau pants with the snaps at the bottom? They were like balloon pants. Letterman used to wear them.
Jeez.
Those things were cool. I wish I could get my hands on a pair of those again. Those Gerbeaus, man,
Like
those were great.
MC Hammer pants.
They weren't that cartoonish. They were pretty stylish. They were expensive too. But man, I miss those. But yeah, I gave up comedy. There's a lot to talk about there, but
Well, let's talk about comedy a little bit.
all right.
I don't want you to skip over it. I want to hear about some of your experiences doing comedy in Florida. We met at the Comedy Corner in Tampa. You came there once, and that was our first time together. But we actually worked together a lot more when we were doing like the Harrison Holland, Bob Shoemaker gigs around Florida.
Yeah,
you were usually headlining, and I would have to feature for you.
Yeah,
I'd be making $50 a night. You'd be making 100.
Good times. And you know, we were trying to all decide if we were massive stars or not, because when I was down at the comic strip, Eddie Murphy had just been there, and he was like 17 and a massive star. And we were all trying to figure out, am I Eddie Murphy? What's going to happen? Like, how am I lucky? What's going to happen? Will I be on SNL? But yeah, those Florida days were great. And I got to give a shout out to Bob Shoemaker because his rooms really was a training ground for all of us coming up.
Yeah.
Stage time.
He had great locations too. He would send you to the Cayman Islands, to the Virgin Islands. I didn't make it to Cancun. I wanted to, but he had some great locations.
He did, and he gave us all. It was kind of like being in the minor leagues. You know, we were still in the game, and we could get promoted to the A rooms, but we got to learn our trade.
See, now that's a great way to look at it, and it's a great perspective, a great analogy, and that's why you were at the top of the game there at that time, was because you had a whole different way of looking at things, and people like that. Everybody that watched your show liked that. So. Yeah,
I tried to be original. I tried to be. One thing I learned was be original. It reminds me because when I was new at the comic strip, I would have to follow a guy like Dom Herrera in his prime. This is 1985. I was in the business. I was in the business like 3 weeks, and they would have their regular show, 3 headliners rotating throughout the week. Then they would have a line of demarcation. Okay, now that's the show. The show's over. It really emphasized that. But now we have some local guys who want to come up. So if you feel like sticking around, I'd be in the kitchen shaking. And I had my glasses. I had dark glasses on so people couldn't see how afraid I was. I had a coffee mug and I had a saucer, and I'd have my jokes written on the saucer. So I'd be like, but I would have to follow Dom.
I should do that with beer napkins. I used to write little keywords on beer napkins so that if I got lost, I could go to my beer and that's where I am.
Well, I would always keep my set list. That was one of the rituals.
Yes, that's it. It really set list is what it was.
On me, not that I ever referenced it, but just to have it on you was a source of security. But yeah, I would have to follow Dom. Sometimes, you know, there's great comics from New York. You got a feeling of how the business worked. I always pride myself on originality, but there was one time I was new in the business, and I was at the comic strip, and Seinfeld came down, he was playing the Enormo Dome across town and just thought he'd stop in to hang out with comics, because comics is like a very close tribe. And so he's at the comic strip. He's at the outer bar. It's outside the main room. But he's just hanging out with comics, and I'm getting ready to go on. So I go on, and I see Seinfeld stick his head in the door to take a look.
Hey, what's going on in here?
No, he just wants to see how I'm doing or what I've got. And right at that exact moment, I told the joke. It was 85, remember? This is when AIDS first came out. And I was going, what's the deal with this AIDS? I was like doing a Seinfeld delivery. What's the deal with this AIDS candy? This AIDS diet candy. Is it any mystery that these guys are dying at about 80 pounds? We got to get Geraldo Rivera on this. That was one of them, like, and that was the hackiest topic you could ever do. And, you know, it was like probably forbidden in New York City. But that's the one joke he saw. I just, whoop, his head sticks in, whoop, head goes out. And years later, I went, oh,
jeez. Of all the things.
I had some good jokes, though. I mean, I have some jokes that are, I don't know. I seriously might go back into comedy. I'm not sure if I can, but I want to try it. I want to try to go back.
I think it's terrible that you're not in comedy. Again, I used to love your set. I used to love your comedy.
Thank you. I mean, I thought I was going to be F. Scott Fitzgerald or freaking Hemingway. And God goes,
I'm not laughing at your dream. I'm laughing at the fact that I know you, and I know that you're very well read. And we're going to talk about your art in a little bit, which involves that. So yeah, it's a sad truth that we all hope to, you know, become famous authors or famous artists, or, you know, and some of us never get there. You know, we try, we give it our best shot, we do good work, but you know, there's just so much out there. You know, you're just in a sea of authors and artists and performers, and you're just trying to make your mark and make your, you know, show everybody you were on this rock doing some really cool stuff, you know.
I was super blessed in stand-up, but you know, for some reason I thought I was wasting my talent. Comedy seemed so limited, you know, even though it's hard to write a great joke or a classic joke, and it's hard to be in the business, traveling and all that. I was kind of at that point where I was kind of at the point of no return, where, like in the movie Almost Famous, where the kid is on the bus, and he goes, I got to go home, and who's the beauty? Who's the blonde beauty? Oh, sorry. The blonde beauty co-star leans over to him and goes, "You are home." And do you know that scene?
It's been like a decade since I've seen Almost Famous.
What's her name? Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. Okay.
Yeah, Kate Hudson goes, "You are home." It was a very important scene because it's mythological. There really comes a point in your life. And I was kind of there. Actually, I was far beyond there. I was living in LA. Stuff was happening. I opened for Belzer at the San Diego Theater. Ellen DeGeneres was my friend. I was in at the Improv, in at the Laugh Factory. I did a spot at the Comedy Store. And what's her name?
Mitzi Shore?
Yeah, Mitzi didn't pass me, but she offered me a job as a doorman. But I was already in at the Improv, and I didn't realize that was a big thing. I was like, why would I do that? I'm on the road. But I was in at the Improv, in at the Laugh Factory. Jamie Masada one night after a show, I think it was like a Friday night, Fraser Smith was on KLSX. He was the midnight DJ. He was a comedian. And that was a very big rock station, classic rock. And so Jamie goes, "Steve, come with me. We have to go do the radio." And I go, "Okay." And so Jamie Masada, the owner of the Laugh Factory, a legendary dude, drives me over to KLSX and brings me up. And he's just going to try to get me some airtime with Fraser, just because he liked my comedy. And so I'm standing in the hallway. I'm just hanging out, and there's this big black dude standing next to me. This old black dude. He's got a hat. He's got some gold teeth, and we just strike conversation, talking about being on the road. He apparently is a musician of some sort, and he's talking about working the Virgin Islands. We're just kind of, commiserating about being on the road. And suddenly, like an intern comes walking up, and he's got a portrait. Somebody had drawn a portrait of this guy that I'm staying next to. And they're like, "Oh, so great to meet you. So great to meet you." And they give him the portrait and stuff. And I come to find it's Willie Dixon.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there going, and I think of these moments, and I think, what were you thinking by getting out of comedy? I mean, I there's kind of a girl involved. I thought I was going to come back and get married and become a writer and a professor and stay in grad school and come out with a novel. I just had this other life that seemed real close to me. It seemed like right here. You just go here. This is going to be
attainable. It was within reach.
Yeah, it was right here. And then I took a step towards it, and I fell 10 million miles. The man who fell to earth. And when I finally landed, I looked over the edge and realized, oh, there's 10 more million miles to fall. I mean, there's no bottom to the bottom in life,
Oh, man.
You got to watch your steps, son. But anyway, I was talking about being blessed in comedy. And
it's a Willie Dixon quote, right?
I was friends with Bill Hicks, too. Hicks and I did a few gigs. I'd run into him around the country. He was genuinely my friend. I know a lot of people say he's their friend. I played a lot of gigs at Haggerty's in Boca. I was kind of like their main dude. My head was right above the door as you walk in.
Yeah.
And Mitch Hedberg started there. I know we were in the room a lot together. I never watched the open micers, but I used to not want to see open mic comedy. I used to hang in the kitchen, just try to keep my head together about, what new bits I wanted to try, what my set was going to be like, and then I just come out. But I think in many ways, I think Hedberg saw me, and I think I influenced him. I know that's cocky to say, but I think I influenced because
oh, wow,
he was doing cute jokes, clean jokes, original jokes. A lot of them were one-liners, and I think he was watching me, and he picked up some of my stuff. Not that he took my act, but he took some of my style.
There was an attitude, yeah. When you went on stage, there was a kind of an attitude there, an edginess. Again, very hip. Yeah, you were too cool for school when you were on stage. All the other comics, all the young comics at that time, yeah. We all just thought you were the shit.
Thank you for saying that. But
we all respected you a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm very happy to hear that, but it also makes me want to cry because I used to love when I'd hear, "Oh, you're going to be working with Steve Anderson next week," or next month, because I knew it was going to be a good time. It was going to be a good week. Dude, I had that theater in Key West on Jan McCart's Dinner Theater, Cabaret Theater on Mallory Square.
That's right.
And I lived down there for 6 months. I live in Robert Frost's winter cottage, if you can believe that, on Caroline Street.
I remember you told me that.
Yeah, and I would headline there. I'd bring in another comic, like Ryan or Todd Barry. Bennington was down there. Scott Hardy did a set. Cable Guy was down there. They would middle, and I would headline, and then we would just split the money. I was very nice. Because I couldn't offer them any money. I'd just say we'd split the money. And so I grew a lot as a comic. There was a beautiful stage, beautiful theater. Wow. It had dressing rooms. We had a guy in the crow's nest with a camera to follow us with a what do you call that? Not a floodlight, but a
spotlight.
Spotlight. We had a guy with a spotlight following us around. I got half the door, or I got the door, and the theater got the liquor, but they would put on their regular show. Are you there?
Rory has been taken by the ether. It's okay. He probably just got a phone call. Okay. Do you see him now?
Okay,
Okay, you're back.
I'm back.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
I got a
Renee.
phone call.
But they would do their regular show and charge like $15-20 ahead. They would have full on, Broadway productions, musicals usually. And then at 10 o'clock, the theater was mine. And God, me and Johnny had a riot down there. I remember one time backstage, we were behind the curtain, and we would play Dylan's Joker Man, right before the show. And we always played really cool music right before the show. And then the music goes down, the lights come up. We're behind the curtain. I'm going, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Jam Theater, ready for comedy. Your first comic tonight, all the way from Boca Raton. Please welcome Steve Joker Man Johnson. And I'd give him the mic. And one night, Johnny just stayed backstage behind the curtain, goes, hey, thanks, it's great to be here. And he started doing his act from behind the curtain. So all these people are just sitting there looking at a stage that's empty. And Johnny's going, hey, and he's like doing his act from behind the curtain, only for a little bit of time, a few minutes, but then he went out there. Just to show you some of the hijinks. But that's another part of being blessed. We had this beautiful comedian named George, who lived down there, was a bartender, and her other friend was a radio DJ. So we'd go do promo at the radio station, and we'd bring gifts and do some comedy for the people. I mean, Key West was awesome. I mean, I should have just stayed there. When you get older, I should have just stayed there forever. But like, it's like Dylan's song, Destiny seemed to be telling me to be moving on.
And you went to Korea and you went to China. I mean, you've seen some wonderful places, my friend. Okay,
You're right.
so
You're right.
Here we go for another transition. What is it about comedy that makes you go, you know what? I'm going to go to Asia and teach English.
Well, like I'm in Oxford, Mississippi.
Or was there something in between there?
I'm in Oxford, Mississippi right now, and I just couldn't make it into grad school. I was lucky enough to study with Barry Hanna here at Ole Miss, one of America's greatest writers, who's since passed, rest in peace. But I was also lucky enough to study with Harry Cruz at Florida. And so this was a real writing town. So I came here, and I worked at a bookstore. I worked as a waiter. I even worked as a dishwasher for a little bit. But I was getting my ass kicked. I wasn't making any money. I didn't have much time to write at all. And, the well can become bitter if you work too much, you don't have energy or time to create.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So I ended up, going back and forth about going to Korea because I didn't know what was going to happen. I go, what if I'm like one of those little birds?
How did that come onto the plate? I mean, you went to Seoul, right?
Yeah. No, my first school was Incheon.
Oh, okay. All right. So Incheon. So how did that come across your plate?
Well, funny. You should. Funnily, it happened this way. Funnily is a word. But I was in LA getting ready to go back to Florida or some, and I was looking through the want ads in the LA Times, and in the waiter section, in the food service section, it said go to Korea and teach English, and it said it pays 2 million, whatever.
Won. 2 million won.
Yeah, 2 million won, and
which sounds like good money,
I was like, 2 million of anything has got to be good, right? And so I thought about going then, and I just put it in the back of my mind. And then years and years later, I was just getting my ass beat in the regular world. I was thinking, dude, I'm a star. They're gonna love me. I'm gonna get great jobs. They only want to take your soul and give you a nickel.
There you go.
But capitalism. But I finally had enough, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me because I hated flying, dude. You do not know how
Oh,
much
I did not know. I didn't know that you didn't like flying. Oh, wow.
I was claustrophobic as fuck. But like, I didn't know if I was going to be like a little bird. As soon as I get halfway across the Pacific, my heart just gives out, and just like, how like if you put a bird in your hand, it'll just have a heart attack and die. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. So I held off for a long time. And then finally stuff got so bad in America, I said, I'm out.
Yeah, even LA to Asia is like 14 hours. I mean, that's a long flight.
Yeah. Well, I was flying from Florida, so that put an extra little
Like
bit
20
in there.
hours, yeah.
But I got used to it. You know what? You know what I found? The secret?
Yes.
Fear. The secret flying.
Get blitzed to fly.
Have a couple
and that's first class,
Have a couple beverages, look out the window and have a riot. But I really enjoyed teaching in Asia. I was really good at it. It gave me time to do some writing. Everything was interesting. Everything in America I'd seen before. Like everywhere I looked, I know that. I know what this means. I know what this means. This means.
Yeah.
You go to Asia, everything is brand new.
Right.
I mean, everything. Everywhere you look, it's interesting and it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring because it wakes you up. And so I really loved it. I was getting big laughs. I really loved teaching, but also in the course of it, during getting the laughs, I would think of my comedy life and think, oh, I should just be doing comedy. And then I get a call from Ryan. I always stay in touch with Tom Ryan up in New York. He's a great friend. He's a
great guy.
He's a fantastic dude. But I get a call from Ryan. He's going off to like Hawaii for a weekend. He's making $6,000 doing comedy.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? That's 4 months of life for me. What the hell am I doing? I could be in Hawaii. And so, there was a lot of hearkening back. There was a lot of comedy signs throughout my life.
Yeah.
To try to get me to go back. I remember one time I was in class and a kid came in. He had a T-shirt and it had the tow truck from Cars, which was Larry the Cable Guy.
Mater.
Who I started out with.
How you doing, Lightning?
It was Cable Guy, and I was going, is this a sign? Is the universe trying to tell me something? Then I saw that another girl came in and she had a T-shirt that said, everything in the world is amazing, but everybody is miserable. And it's a Louis C.K. line. And I was like, wow, that's another comedy sign. Let me tell you a couple more. I was a waiter at Jubilee in Oxford. And one time I walk out into my section and sitting there is David Letterman. Not David Letterman, but a guy exactly spitting image of a young David Letterman.
Looks just
and I go, wow, you're Dave. I go, I'm sure everybody tells you this, but you look exactly like David Letterman. And he goes, yeah, I get that. And I go, you know what? You should go to New York. And I'll bet there's work for you in New York, being his double, even getting on the show. And he goes, why would I do that? I'm a lawyer. And I go, okay, never mind.
That popped into my head. I was just going to say that line. I was going to say, well, I'm a lawyer. I make great money. Why would I go there and do that?
Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
Believe me, I thought about going to law school. I took the LSAT, did well. Is Renee a lawyer?
She is.
Does she practice?
Renee. We have a question for you.
Run away. Just walk away, Renee.
Renee. She is a lawyer, and I do believe she practices.
I'm here. Yes. Well, here's the thing.
Busy doing the brief.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. Anyways, I don't want to. I thought I heard my name. I was away for just a second.
Just walk away, Renee.
We were talking about you as a lawyer, and your lawyer thing.
Thank you very much for that. But I just want to acknowledge the Left Bank, which is one of my all-time favorite bands, and he put on his sunglasses particularly for that.
It's anything to please you.
Thank you. Yes, Steve and I now we're hot and heavy. It started behind the scenes because of his bandana, and now it's just going to keep going.
It started backstage before the show.
And it's just because of the bandana. I'm basically using him for the bandana.
It's just like something about Mary. Everybody falls in love with Renee. There's something about Renee.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Everyone falls in love with Steve too.
I've got a Sutri Cormac McCarthy shirt on, please. People.
Oh, okay. Here, let's put it. Hold on. Let's put it there.
Just yes. Like Renee. I never wanna feel. What a great song.
Okay, so how long were you in Korea? A couple of years, right?
4.5 years, and I hooked up with my bro Rory, who had an English school called Super English that he owned with Kim Jong-un.
Okay, so I get this email from Steve Anderson, who totally admired and loved working with in Florida as a comic. I'm in Korea, I'm teaching, but my visa's about to come up, and they're going to kick me out of Korea. Yeah, I heard you got a school in China, and again, I had just opened the school Super English with my wife's cousin George, who was Kim Jong-un. So. Wife was Patrick. Were you there the day that she threw the ashtray at his head at the school?
George's wife?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I'm teaching class. I swear to God, I'm teaching class, and I hear them fighting in Chinese out in the front, of the school, out in the office area, and I hear this, punk. Which I had heard once before in the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, when the Coke bottle hits the guy's head. Wow. And I go out. She has thrown an ashtray at George's head, his wife. She's yelling at him. And he's got his hand shaking on his head, and there's blood gushing out of his forehead through his fingers. It was so traumatic and just unbelievable. And that was what made me make the decision to go to the other school. One of the things that made me make the decision to go to the other school.
I got to thank you for that gig. It turned into 8 years in Shenzhen, and it was quite an adventure. And I really got to see China change. I really got to see. I got into my painting because of the art supplies in Dauphin Painting Village. Yeah, I wrote my big book.
That is your novel.
This is a fictional memoir. It's called it's either called Qingtao Blues, Year of the Snake, or it's called The Loneliness of Astronauts. It's a fictional memoir. It's about a lot of the stories I've told you here. But a lot of them start in regular stories, and then they turn into something wild and outrageous with a writer's embellishment. But I was able to get into painting, do a lot of painting, which I'd started in Oxford. But I was able to do a lot of writing. And I also took notes for my screenplay, Bullet, Easy Bullet, Bullet, which it's out there right now. There's a writer's strike, but it's still out there. Yeah. But that's, I owe a great debt for Shenzhen, and for Shenzhen, I owe you, because you were the one who turned me on to it. And that was a great city, man.
Well, somebody else turned you on to it. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Steve Johnson, but I was the one that actually helped you to get into Shenzhen. And again, for me, it was great because we got to hang out on a regular basis. I mean, even though we only worked together for maybe a year, like you said, it lasted 8 years for you. And again, we got to hang out a lot of that time. And again, you had told me many times, that you would love the hours. You would go in for a couple hours a day and teach English, make good money as an English teacher. I mean, American English teachers in China make great money. They really do. And again, you mentioned Dafan Painting Village, which is a painting village in Shenzhen. It's in the Buji district, which is in the very center of Shenzhen. And there's like 400 artists. It's a community of artists. And all of the famous replicas and copies of famous art come from there. And that's where my collection, the Iconic Art Project, came from. You know, I got all my copies. I started collecting, and it kind of got big. I started like, okay, maybe I've collected too much. But yeah, it was fun making friends with those guys that were the artists out there, the guys and the gals that did the art out there, and they're very eager to please, and it was a great place to just go hang out for a while and just look at all the art and stuff. So I understand, yeah, it actually kicking your muse into gear. I do want to talk about your art because it is very interesting what you've done, in the fact that, and can I tell people about it?
Yeah.
Okay. What you've done is you take pages from famous books like Catcher in the Rye, The Great Gatsby, and you paint them. You paint the actual page word for word, which is very meticulous. It takes a long time for you to do it. And then you kind of gloss over it with special coating to make it nice and make it look like an old book page. And I found that fascinating when you told me that that's what you were doing, that you were motivated to do that. Because again, you're a very literary guy. You like to read. You're a reader. We have us a reader here. That's a Hicks line.
Because I don't want to be a Waffle House waitress.
So, my question to you here, while I've got you talking about it, is what makes you choose the pages that you choose to make the paintings of? Is it stuff that you're experiencing yourself at the time that's happening to the person in the book? What is it how do you choose the pages that you paint?
Rory, you're a good interviewer.
Well, thank you.
No, that's a good question. Because a lot of thought goes into that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm doing 2 books. I'm doing Catcher in the Rye and Great Gatsby. Now, when I chose the pages, I was choosing iconic scenes that really portrayed that author or that book. And also pages that you could put on your wall and not get sick of. Something you could read over again and again. It was a series I was doing called Capturing Genius.
Okay.
I did Dylan's Joker Man. I did Bobby Fischer versus Spassky, Game 6. I did 2,400 Numbers of Pi. So I was just trying to capture that. Now, my normal style is wild. My normal style is outsider art, and there's usually some text. I like to think of it as like album covers. My normal art is just album covers with precise text. But I was in South Korea, and I was reading Catcher for the first time in a while, and I saw this one page, and I had an epiphany. Like, I looked at this page, and it was a work of art. From head to toe, it worked perfectly. And so that's what I looked for. And it wasn't until 5 years later that I started doing literary paintings. But as far as Gatsby goes, Catcher in the Rye was easy because the header of the page said Catcher in the Rye, the Catcher in the Rye page, whatever. But Gatsby, the book I had no. I was doing precise renditions of the page, and so when I picked Gatsby, I would do only pages that had the word Gatsby in them, or it was noticeably that it was Gatsby, and I would I'd pick iconic pages. I would never do the last page. The last page would be cheating, and that's giving away something sacred. You should never do the last page.
One of our fans, John Duncan, who's in Tasmania, says if you do a page from the Go-Between, he'll buy it. That's evidently his favorite book. I wanted to ask you though, when I had to stop to here for a second, you don't do the same page twice, right? It's just a one-time painting.
Well,
unless it's requested.
Well, I'll do commissions. You can give me a book, you can give me a page, I'll do it.
Mhm.
The idea is an original one, and it is mine. I haven't heard of anybody else do it. It's an easily stealable idea,
Yeah.
but I try to do it. I try to do it originally. But the first pages I did were catcher,
Mhm.
because I did the page of page one. I believe it's page 172. It's I want to be a catcher in the rye, and Phoebe saying, "Daddy's going to kill you." It's from the poet Robert Burns. Da da da. Robert Byrne and da da da. So that's the iconic page, and it
Mhm.
tells you what is a catcher in the rye. And
Yeah.
Holden tells his sister Phoebe, and it's a perfect page. It's I think page 172. Then I did page 188. It's the definition of a mature man. He's with his English teacher. He goes, a definition of a mature man and an immature man. Strangely, this came from a psychoanalyst, not from a poet. And the definition, I forget the name of the poet or the psychoanalyst or the psychiatrist, but it said the definition of a mature man, definition of an immature man is someone who wants to die heroically for a cause. And the definition of a mature man is one who wants to live humbly for one. And so it's a great ass line. And so I did that one. And then I did page, I believe it's page 66. It's Holden's in the cab with the taxi driver going,
You
where
spend
did the
so
ducks
much time
go?
with these paintings, you know the numbers of the pages by heart. Wow.
Oh, I'm telling you, this is a great exercise for any writer. Because when you spend weeks meticulously carving each letter, you see how it's edited, you see how it's punctuated, you internalize it at such a deep level. I'm like, what is classic literature? This is the level. And you understand writing and literature and editing at such a higher level. Page 66 was Holden saying to the cab driver, "Where do the ducks go during the winter? I mean, when the lake freezes over." And the guy goes, "What are you trying to kid me?" He's like some like grizzled, New York cabbie. What are you trying to mess with me, kid? What are you crazy? And then Holden at the end goes, "Hey, let's go have a drink. I'm loaded." And he's such a young kid. He doesn't know how it works. He just thinks the cabbie can just go have a drink with him someplace. And it's an incredible book. And it's a heartbreaking work of staggering genius, as is Gatsby. So in Gatsby, I did his first appearance, 2 pages, when Nick Galloway is at a table with these girls and this mysteriously handsome man, and he's just trying to talk about the party and go, because Nick lives off the mansion in the guest house, and he's going, who's this? I haven't met him yet. And Gatsby goes, I'm afraid I'm a terribly bad host. I'm Gatsby. That's like, it's a 2-page thing. Some of them will be 3 pages. The first party scene is a 3-pager. They all go together. I did that. I did.
Now, are you going to put those together as a tripitch, or do you?
Those 3 would be sold together.
Okay.
I have one 4-page sequence of Holden in the museum, and that can be sold as 4 or 2 and 2. They both work. But in Gatsby, I have his first appearance. I have Beautiful Shirts. I have First Kiss with Daisy. I have You Can't Go Back in Time. Of course you can, old chum, old boy, old sport. And then I have Gatsby's last appearance when he's standing by the pool. And I will redo the one I had a show in Fat City in Fort Lauderdale, or I had 3 paintings up, and it made quite a stir. The one I did sell was Where Do the Ducks Go in the Winter? Strangely, I thought for sure I Want to Be a Catcher in the Rye. I thought for sure that one would sell, but strangely enough, it brought in some good money.
Yeah, but you never know what somebody's going to like. It's just it's subjective. Art is subjective. I highly recommend that if you're interested in this type of art, to go check out Steve Anderson's page. at Facebook. If you can't find him immediately, because there's a lot of Steve Andersons out there, go to my friends list and you'll find him and connect to him there. And yeah, if you've got a commission, talk to him.
Totally. I'm kind of stuck up here in Oxford. This is where I started painting.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to have a bunch of places. I had shows here all the time, but all the places I used to have shows are no longer here.
Now,
so I'm having trouble getting this art up. And this is a different kind of art. This is expensive.
Yeah, the pages themselves, you can't like roll them up and put them in a tube and send them to somebody, right? You have to,
Sure.
you have to get a truck and drive it to them, right?
Well, that's part of the logistics that I'm learning about the art world, because I moved out of Florida. I brought it all to New Orleans, or New Orleans, as they say. And I was following New Orleans and Oxford because those were the settings of my film, Bullet Easy Bullet Bullet, noir parody with a beautiful romance. And so I was just following. I was basically, at heart, I'm a gambler, and gambled my way into the poorhouse. But I gambled on my movie, and I went to New Orleans. Oh, I'll go to New Orleans. I'll meet somebody. I'll network. I'll hand my script off. By the way, I got my script. I think I told you this. I got my script in at CAA with Mick Sullivan, their top agent, with Sean Penn. And so that took place. And then Mick went to Range Media. So that ended that. But I'm not sure if Sean actually read it, but it made it through CAA. And I got coverage from CAA. Wow. It made it into Peter Farrelly's people. They read it and gave me coverage. Nick Cage's people had it. I've had some luck. I've had some nibbles, but I'm understanding the film world as well as the art world, and it ain't easy. It ain't easy being me. I'm telling you,
tough crowd. Whoa.
Hey, I met Rodney at the Hollywood Improv once. I was standing there in the lobby talking to somebody, and suddenly this guy comes between us, and he's in a bathrobe, and he put his arms around both of us, and I look, and it's Rodney freaking Dangerfield. He's got the bluest eyes you've ever seen, and he goes, "Boys, I don't know any answers." And I go, "What are the questions?" And he goes, "I don't know those either." And but I completely met Rodney once. I mean,
that's funny.
I was definitely blessed. I guess I'm blessed now. There's so many things.
When you look over your life, when you go back and watch this show, you'll realize how blessed you are. Not just because you were on the show, but because of what you just told us here, for certain.
Well, thank you. Well, if I could also interject, like I said earlier, you can fall 10 million miles and then land and go, "Oh my God." But then look over the precipice and realize there's 10 more million miles to fall. I mean, you can really eat shit in this world, so you gotta stay humble. You got to stay humble.
And you got to love life every day. When you wake up, it's a gift.
I'm trying to pull off a good third act. I might go back to Florida. I'm at this point right now where I'm about to go to Florida or I'm about to go back to Asia. I just interviewed with a Japanese school. They're like, "We love you. Send us your thing." And then, "Nah, you're too old." Whoa, stop dragging my heart around.
No.
And so I'm realizing age has suddenly reared its ugly head. And it's not this. Wow. It's not this. It's something else. This is a face transplant. Damn chimpanzees, man. Watch out for those mofos.
They look cute. Jungle.
They look cute. You try to hand them a banana and they just eat your face off your face. It's not good. Right, it's not good.
It sounds terrible.
They still haven't even wired the nerves yet. I'm learning to smile.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show this first time. I was trying to get you on a long time ago, and I'm so glad we got you on tonight, or today, I should say. And we'll have you back on again. We'll have some fun again, for sure. There's
Rory,
so many other stories.
It was an absolute pleasure, and there's a lot more to talk about. We could easily do another hour, but
yeah, we did an hour and 15 minutes here, so we're looking forward to the second one.
It was great seeing you. Good luck with the art project.
Thank you.
Lovely Renee, please. I'm with your people. I stand in solidarity. Like F Putin.
That's right. That's the symbol. That's what we do.
But
it's like lobbing a grenade into a room and ducking out. She comes in for a couple of seconds.
like Seinfeld watching my bad
Keep
joke.
trying to pull her in. Come on, Renee.
I changed my background, so now I'm the ghost
you.
of the Ukrainian mansion. Now
Solidarity.
They want to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, and
Slava
again, everybody
Ukrainians.
definitely check
Slava.
out Steve Anderson and his page. He's got a lot to share, a lot of writing, a lot of art, a lot of stories. We were so blessed to have you here today for this show and to tell us some of those stories.
Thank you.
Take care, my friend. I really do hope you come back to Florida. I hope to see you again soon.
I do as well. And let's work it out where Renee pays a visit and we all hang together.
There you go. She's up in the New York area.
Comedy. There you go.
Freeze
frame. Fade to black. Comedy.
Freeze frame.
And I want to say that we have a show coming up in 9 minutes. It's going to be right here. Farwell, myself. We have a show.
I didn't realize you had a show on after us.
Yeah, we do.
Renee's the hardest working gal in showbiz.
She is. She's always starting up new shows. I don't know when she sleeps. I don't.
I produce in my sleep. It's an amazing thing. One of my tentacles of my octopus tentacles. It keeps going while I'm sleeping.
I could make a James Bond joke, but I won't.
I got it. If nobody else did.
Thank you, Rory. You're a good crowd.
You knew I would get the James Bond reference.
Well, yeah, Rory, thanks. Let's get together soon. And
yeah, man.
It's been a pleasure. And peace. Train. Comedy.